America, we gotta get back to doing what's expected of us as free citizens in this democracy. That means being tolerant, being respectful, staying informed, and being engaged. I'm former Congressman Joe Walsh. Follow me here and join the millions of Americans who are renewing their social contract with each other. The social contract, it's on us. Hey, good morning, everybody. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to start. Good morning, TikTok. So bear with me for a moment. This Wednesday, there was an amazing moment yesterday in a church, in a cathedral, in Washington, D.C. An Episcopalian bishop, a tiny Episcopalian bishop, 65 years old. I'll bet she's not even 5 foot tall. She stood in front of the President of the United States, this tiny Episcopalian bishop, at a prayer service in Washington, D.C., with Donald Trump and Melania and J.D. Vance and his wife in the first pew in front of her. And this tiny little Episcopalian female bishop stood in front of the most powerful person on the planet, the newly sworn in President of the United States. And she delivered a sermon at this prayer service. And really, she had one message for the President of the United States. She had one message to deliver yesterday at this prayer service in Washington, D.C. She had one message to deliver to the most powerful person on the planet. The message was simple. All she said to the President, all she asked of the President, all she pleaded with this President was show mercy. Be merciful. Show compassion. That's all, Mr. President. You won. Congratulations. Mr. President, there are a lot of people who are afraid in this country. She simply asked the President to show mercy and compassion. And all hell came down on her. Half of the country erupted. Trump supporters attacked her in the ugliest and most vicious ways. Donald Trump came out later on in the day and demanded an apology. Said it was a terrible church service, terrible sermon. Wouldn't go back. This barely 5 foot, 65-year-old Episcopalian bishop stood in front of the President of the United States yesterday and asked him to be merciful, to be compassionate, and all hell came down on her. From Republicans, from MAGA, from Trump supporters, from Donald Trump himself, from damn near every Fox News host. How dare she? They made fun of who she is. They made fun of how she looks. They made fun of her sexual identity. They told Trump never to go back to the Washington Cathedral, never to set foot back in that house of worship, never to give her the time of day again. All because she asked the most powerful person on the planet, as he sets forth now in his presidency, to show mercy and compassion to the people in this country now who are afraid. TikTok, I'm going to have Keith here in a second play. It's about a minute and a half clip of what Bishop Marianne Edgar Budd asked of the president. It's about a minute 30 clip. Again, TikTok, because you're listening on my phone, I've got you on my phone, you're not going to be able to hear what the bishop says. Everybody else will be able to hear it as she's talking. TikTok, I will talk to you. Keith, go ahead and give it to me.
I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land.
In this land. Thank you, Keith. Apologize, TikTok. I did the best I could. So much as I watched this came to me, but I want to start with that. Donald Trump got elected, promising to do a number of things. He's promised to come down hard on the border, come down hard on illegal immigration. He's promised to deport every person who is in this country illegally. He's promised to go after the LGBTQ community. He's promised to mandate that there are only men and women and two genders and two sexes, and nobody can say anything else. She didn't get into any of that. All this bishop said to the president is, you won, sir. All I'm telling you is there are people in this country who are afraid. That's all. So as you enact upon your policies, as you go down the road of your presidency and you do the things you said you would do and you'd promise you would do, just be cognizant that there are a lot of people in this country afraid. Teenagers, young adults who are transgender, they're afraid. The lesbian and gay community is afraid. Just be aware of that and show mercy to all God's children who might be and will be impacted by your policies. The children of people who are still in this country illegally, they're afraid, she said, Mr. President, that their mom and dad are going to be deported. Show compassion, sir. Show mercy, sir. She told the president that there are people who are afraid right now because of what you said you'd do. She didn't say to Trump, don't do what you're going to do. How dare you? She didn't get political. She acknowledged he won. She just said, as you do what you think you have to do, just be aware that there are a lot of people right now afraid that they're going to be thrown in jail, afraid that they're going to be they've lived in this country for 30 years. They've paid taxes. They've gone to church. They've contributed to their communities, and they're afraid they're going to be picked up and thrown out of this country. She didn't say, don't do that. She didn't get into the policy of that. She said, Mr. President, be aware of the fact that they are afraid, and show mercy and compassion. That's all. There are people who feel you are going to make who feel like strangers in this land. She reminded Trump, we were all at one time strangers in this land. It's all she said. It's all she asked of Trump. Show mercy. Show compassion. Be like Jesus. You're Christian, Mr. President. Be like Jesus, who would show mercy and show compassion. That's all she said. And because she said that, because she asked that of the president, for the rest of the day and still today, she's being attacked in the ugliest of ways by Trump supporters. She shouldn't be in the church. She's a lesbian. She's a far left crazy. This is why the Episcopalians suck. On and on and on it goes. Because she asked the president of the United States to be like Jesus. Think about that for a minute. Think about that for a minute. Yeah, I'm Christian. Don't know how many listening right now are Christian. She asked the president of the United States to be like Jesus. And because of that, Christians are attacking her. Trump supporters who call themselves Christian are attacking this bishop for asking the president of the United States to be like Jesus, to be merciful, to be compassionate as you carry out your policies. She didn't say don't deport anybody. And Christians are attacking her. Christians are attacking her. She said nothing about the border. She said nothing about immigration policy. She did not stand in front of the president of the United States and say, damn it, we should have an open border. People who are in this country illegally should have the same rights as people who are here legally. There should be no difference. She didn't say any of that. She suddenly reminded the president of the United States that of the 11 to 12 to 13 million people, non-citizens who are living in this country, the vast, vast, vast majority are not criminals. The vast, vast, vast majority have been living here for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. The vast, vast, vast majority have raised families here, have paid taxes here, have contributed to the economy here, have been Americans, in essence, American citizens. Show compassion toward them. Be merciful. But man, no, right? Too much of MAGA, no, right? To be Christian means to kick them out of here. You got to be tough. You broke a law, you're gone. You're in this country illegally. I don't give a damn what your situation is, what your personal situation is. I don't give a damn about your kids. We had a Republican, a Republican, Trump appointed him to something, former Republican congressman, former mayor, governor of Montana or one of the states out there. I forget which state. He was on Fox News last night or CNN, and he was asked, but under Trump's mass deportation policies, he may break up families. What about those kids? And this guy answered and said, well, there are adoption services in this country. Maybe the kids need to be deported too. That's Christian. That's MAGA Christianity. Look, how long before Jesus is woke? Like, woke is a bad thing. According to MAGA and Trump supporters, woke is a bad thing. Well, clearly, and this bishop yesterday was attacked for being woke. I heard and saw that all over. Oh, she's just a woke lefty. She's just a woke lefty for asking the president of the United States to be merciful and compassionate, to be like Jesus. Well, then Jesus is woke. Well, then, MAGA, woke is a bad, horrible thing. Jesus is woke. I mean, as a Christian, there was not a more merciful, compassionate person, being who walked this planet than Jesus Christ. And I can tell you right now, I believe, my faith tells me, none of us know, my faith tells me, if Jesus Christ were around right now, what would Jesus do? If Jesus were here in this country right now, Jesus would not mass deport everybody in this country who's here illegally. I'll look you square in the eye, MAGA. I'll look you square in the eye, TikTok. Jesus would not support Donald Trump's mass deportation. No way, no how. No. Jesus would sit the president down. Jesus would sit Republicans and Democrats down, and he would say what this bishop said yesterday. He would say, we love all of God's children. I know there are laws, right? I know there are immigration laws, but first and foremost, these are God's children. First and foremost, we handle all of God's children with compassion and mercy. Jesus would say, damn it, Republicans and Democrats, figure out a merciful way to work with and love these people. There's no way on God's green earth. I'll translate for Bishop Marianne Edgar Budd. There's no way Jesus Christ would advocate that someone who's been in this country illegally for 20 years and has lived a good, lawful life and raised kids here and paid taxes and contributed to their communities, there's no way Jesus would say that person needs to go. Period. In fact, Jesus, my faith tells me, the people who are in this country illegally, even the violent felons who have violent felonies on their record, Jesus would embrace and love them, would show mercy to them, even if they needed to be put in prison, even if they needed to be gotten the heck out of this country. You're in this country illegally and you have a violent criminal record, I believe you should be out of this country. But Jesus, MAGA, would not say be cruel to those people. Jesus showed compassion and mercy to everyone. Jesus would embrace every transgender boy or girl, man or woman. Jesus would embrace every gay and lesbian person in this country. That's what my faith tells me. That's what my reading of who Jesus was and how he lived and what he preached tells me. But I digress. This bishop simply asked Donald Trump, a self-professed Christian, to contemplate Jesus, how Jesus would treat all of his children as you enact your policies. And anyone offended by that, MAGA, anyone, MAGA, offended by that respectfully ought to go back and do a little soul searching and do a little studying and do a little praying and do a little reflecting on how Jesus lived his life. The second thing that came to me, Josh. So here's the deal. Josh, a Trump supporter, just said, would Jesus advocate that Venezuelan gangs take over apartment complexes? No, but I'll tell you what, if there was a Venezuelan gang that had taken over an apartment complex somewhere in Colorado, if Jesus walked the earth right now, he'd go right to that apartment complex and he'd tell those gang members to drop their arms, to hold his hand, and to find God. Jesus would work with those Venezuelan gang members, even if, Josh, those Venezuelan gang members who you say have taken over an apartment complex somewhere in Colorado, even if those Venezuelan gang members needed to leave the country. You think Jesus would throw stones at them? Hurl rocks at them? Fight with them? Treat them cruelly? Is that what you think, Josh? Do you think Jesus would treat a Venezuelan gang member with cruelty? Mercy and compassion. Jesus wasn't a bully. Jesus wasn't cruel. Jesus wasn't divisive. If Jesus were running for president, which he never would do, this past year, Jesus wouldn't have made up divisive and cruel and fear-mongering bullshit like Haitian migrants are eating cats and dogs. If Jesus were around right now, Jesus wouldn't have approved of Donald Trump doing and saying what he did in that campaign. If Jesus were around today and Trump stood up in that debate and said they're eating cats and dogs, a complete and utter and hateful and cruel bullshit lie, Jesus would have sat Donald Trump down, Josh, with love. And Jesus would have tried to appeal to Donald Trump's heart. And he would have said, Donald, don't do that. You're spreading hate. Don't do that. The vast, vast, vast majority of these Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, are good, decent people. They go to church. Jesus, Josh, with love, would have asked Donald Trump to stop lying and to stop appealing to people's fear. The strangers among us, the lepers among us, the tax collectors among us, the criminals among us. Read your Bible. How did Jesus treat them, guys? The second, and I've gone on too long, but this just, two final points. Courage. Oh my God, courage. When they write the book 100 years from now about this Trump era, one of the biggest aspects of the history books will be Republican cowardice. Damn near every single Republican for the past 11 to 12 years afraid to do the right thing, afraid to say the right thing, afraid to criticize Trump when Trump's bad, when Trump's wrong, when Trump lies, when Trump incites an attack on our Capitol. Every year, just littered with political cowardice. Big, strong, tough politicians, big, strong, tough Fox News TV hosts and right-wing radio guys, big, strong, tough governors, Republicans across the land. None of them ever displayed the courage to stand up to Donald Trump and his cruelty and his lies and his divisiveness. When I listened to this 5-foot bishop yesterday, just ask the president to be merciful and compassionate. It's the first word that jumped out at me was courage. How courageous. Standing in front of the most powerful person on the planet and, in essence, lecturing him to be better. In essence, criticizing him because he has not displayed the ability to be better. But she's a woman of God. She's asking one more time for him to be better. But the courage it took to speak her truth, the truth, the truth. Mercy is a good thing. Compassion is a good thing. Our transgender brothers and sisters are God's children. They're good things. We should embrace them. To have the courage to speak that way publicly, knowing he's going to come down on her, and he did, knowing that in this world we live in right now via social media and every other which way, instant news, cable news, every one of his supporters, half the country, is going to come down on her. She's going to be hit with ugly, personal, vicious attacks. She knew that. And she had the courage to say what she had to say, what she felt called to say. Those Republicans and those Trump supporters capable of shame, I hope they felt some shame yesterday. Look, any of us Republicans who did speak out against Trump, as I came out against Trump 6 years ago, I knew the moment I publicly came out against Trump, I knew my career was done. I knew I'd get death threats on a regular basis. I knew I'd lose my friends, my supporters. I knew I'd take a blowtorch to my livelihood and my career. I knew in many ways my life would be done. I would put up with daily hate and daily attacks. I knew 6 years ago when I came out against Trump, this was what my future was going to be. I still did it. Any of us, and there are a handful of us Republicans who did it, we knew what would hit us. But 99.99999% of the Republicans who all felt like I did about Trump, but didn't have the courage to come out publicly and say it, I hope they listened to this bishop yesterday and felt some shame. It's such a rare thing today. I close every podcast, right? Be brave, be brave. It's a rare thing these days for people in our political world, in our media world, in our public world to exhibit bravery, to be brave. To be courageous is to say what you believe and do what you think is the right thing, even though you know it's going to hurt you, politically, professionally, personally. It's why damn near every politician doesn't display courage. This 5-foot Washington Episcopalian bishop yesterday, in a minute and 30, in one 1 minute and 30-second clip in a sermon, displayed more courage than every single Republican in this country in the past 10 years in this Trump era has ever displayed. And she did it in just over a minute. Final thought. And I'll use the issue of immigration. This may surprise some of you. I've always been an immigration hawk. First and foremost, defend the border. Nobody should come into this country illegally. Our immigration system's been a mess forever. And in my public life, back from when I was in Congress, I've been a border hawk. Defend the border, fix our immigration system. Secure the border, fix our immigration system. Nobody should come in this country illegally. We need to make it a hell of a lot easier for people to come into this country legally. Trump is an ugly, mean, hateful, divisive reaction to the left on this issue of immigration going way far left. And Americans who went to the polls in November felt that way. Most of the Americans who went to the polls in November, and I talked about this, you know this, they believed the Democrats didn't give a damn about the border. The Democrats didn't give a damn about all these migrants being dumped into all these cities all over the country. The Democrats didn't give a damn about our problem with people coming into this country illegally, with a lot of good reason, right? A lot of Americans felt that way, right? And a lot of Americans went to the polls in November and said, doggone it, I don't like Trump, right? I've said this before. I don't like Trump. He's a bad guy. He lies all the time, but he's going to secure the border. And the Democrats have ignored the border. Democrats don't give a damn that there are 20,000 Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio. Trump stands in front of the American people and lies about those Haitian migrants. Trump stands in front of the American people and says they're eating cats and dogs. They're committing crimes every day. They're here. But the American people felt like Democrats didn't give a damn about these Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio. And so they went with the Trump reaction. I'm just taking one issue. The left has not cared about immigration and the border. The left has been dismissive of, Democrats have been dismissive of regular Americans who've been saying, as they've been saying to me for the last 12, 13 years, Joe, we got a problem on our border. It's not right that anybody can just come into this country illegally. Regular people understand rightly that the Democrats have not been paying attention to that. So the pendulum swung. And they lurched with Trump. And Trump will be another overreaction. Instead of fixing the problem, right? If regular people feel like the left and Democrats were too far and they ignored the problem, Trump is going to come down like a hammer. And that's what this bishop was talking about. Trump's going to go too far. Trump's going to treat people with cruelty. Trump's going to kick people out of this country who shouldn't be kicked out of this country. Trump's going to break up families. Trump's going to make immigrant children cry. Trump's going to deal with this problem and go too far and make it more difficult for good people to come into this country illegally. It's the pendulum swinging. It swung too far to the left on immigration. Trump's going to take it too far to the right. Way too far. Most Americans are right here. Most Americans on immigration want, look, let's make it easier for people to come into this country legally. Trump's going to limit, he's already doing it, limiting the ability for people to come here and claim asylum. That's a legal process. Donald Trump, via one of his executive orders, is putting a pause on people legally coming here to claim asylum. It's the reaction to how far the left went on this issue. And Trump's going to be an overreaction. And it's going to hurt our economy. And it's going to hurt who we are as a people. Most Americans on immigration want it to be easier for people to come here legally. Let's embrace more and more and more people who want to come here legally. Most Americans believe that you have a legal right to come here and claim asylum. Let's adjudicate those asylum cases much more promptly. Most Americans are right in the middle. Most Americans don't believe people should crawl across the border and come into this country illegally. Most Americans, though, don't know that of the 11 or 12 million people who are in this country illegally, the vast majority have just overstayed their visas. So let's fix that problem. Trump is an ugly, dangerous reaction to what the left did and didn't do, especially on this issue of immigration. He will be an overreaction because that's just who he is. Finally, most Americans believe in mercy and compassion. Most Americans subscribe to what this Episcopalian bishop asked of Donald Trump yesterday. Be merciful and compassionate. Be merciful and compassionate. Treat everybody like God's children. I'm done. I'm sorry I went on so long with this. I apologize. Thanks for listening. Do me a favor, go to oneflaginitiative.org, oneflaginitiative.org. You see the No Kings meme above. Thanks, Keith. The No Kings meme above my shoulder. It's now on it's my profile pic on every one of my social media platforms. No Kings in America, no Kings in America. If you agree with me that there should be no kings in America, change your profile pic as well. Join me in this movement. Go to One Flag Initiative, all one word, oneflaginitiative.org. No Kings in America. Joe Walsh Whiteflag at gmail.com. That's my email, Joe Walsh Whiteflag, all one word, at gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Be brave, everybody. Be brave.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, share, and follow The Social Contract with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been The Social Contract.